Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakorash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us this truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect out there that's listening, learning, and or teaching. Shalom. All right, this is Genesis 16 and 1. All right, today we're going to be going into wives and concubines and just going into that dynamic. All right, so this is Genesis 16 and 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Okay, so, Sarah had a handmaid. So we're going to go into that word real quick. Shifkal.
Strong's H 8198. Shivcha.
And it's a maid.
Shivcha.
A maid servant or a slave girl, right? Because basically a handmaid is the property of, whose ever handmaid she is, right? So in this case, Hagar was the property of Sarai. Okay, and Hagar was a heathen, as you can see here, an Egyptian. Okay, so now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now Yahweh hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. So right there, Sarai, she was disappointed because she couldn't have children. Okay, for whatever reason, it just wasn't the Lord's will for her to give birth yet. So the matrix was closed. And basically she said, you know what, just take my servant, Hagar, my handmaid, and, have sex with her. Okay, that I may get children from her. All right, and Abram did what? Abram listened to Sarai. Okay, and so basically Sarai gave Abram her handmaid to wife. Okay, but now when an Israelite man gets together with a heathen woman, it's not called a wife, it's called a concubine. Okay, so there's a difference. So let's get the word concubine here in the etymology. All right, it says C 1300, a paramour, a woman who cohabits with a man without being married to him, which that's off because, sex is marriage. But anyway, it says also in reference to Hebrew, Greek, Roman, and other civilizations where the position was recognized by law, a wife of inferior condition, a secondary wife. And that's the correct definition right there. Okay, so basically, Israelite man can have a woman of the other nations. All right, an example, a so-called Chinese woman, a so-called white woman, a so-called Arab, a so-called Hamite or African woman. Okay, but, a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, any woman, that's an Israelite woman. So then she would be of higher status. Okay, that makes sense. So, first the Israelite woman, then the heathen women. Okay, but again, as you see, Abram was already married to his wife, Sarai. Okay, so it's not a sin for a man to get a second wife. In this case, Sarai was in very good order compared to a lot of these modern women today, because she understood the situation, and she gave Abram a good idea and basically gave Abram a second wife. So now Abram had two women. Sarai was not jealous like you modern women are today. Okay, or at least not to that extent. Okay, because you modern women today, you think you can own a man. Okay, it's not that, the scriptures say that he that getteth a wife begetteth a possession. Okay, so both Sarai and Hagar now belong to who? Abram. And we're going to get a precept to this. This is Exodus 21 and 10. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. Right, so a man can have a second wife, or third, or fourth, or seventh, or a 10th wife, okay, as long as he can take care and support those Israelite women. Okay, now if they end up being concubines or heathen women, okay, he doesn't really have to take care of them to such a high extent like he would with the Israelite woman, right? They're of inferior status. They're basically, you know, you know, there's a hierarchy. Okay, the scriptures deal with order and hierarchy. So, the heathen women, may be used for sexual things, all right, by the husband, all right? And of course, the husband will take care of her to some extent, but okay, not nearly to the extent that he would take care of his Israelite woman. Okay, so now let's go back here and we're going to get back into it. Okay. Um, let's see here. Yep, he hearkened unto the voice of Sarai. Genesis 16:3. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife, right? So they had sex, okay, and he was trying to get Hagar pregnant, right? And so was Sarai. Sarai wanted Hagar to get pregnant, right? To get children by her, okay? Verse 4. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. All right. And the word mistress, is basically going into something like a female lord or a teacher of servants. You could look up the etymology. We can go into it real quick here. Try not to make this video too long.
Strong's H 1404. Gevereth.
Gebereth.
Gevereth.
Says lady, queen, mistress of servants. Let's get mistress here. So of servants. What is a mistress? A housekeeper, a governess, a female teacher, right? Of what? Of servants. Okay, so she's basically the leader of the servants. Okay, as she was with Sarai. Okay, or Salakia, as she was with Hagar, right? Hagar was her subordinate, and Sarai was her leader, right? So now we go down to verse 5. And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Yahweh judge between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her face, right? So Sarai, she dealt harshly with her servant, her handmaid. All right, and Abram said, hey, that's your maid. So yeah, even though she was Abram's concubine, okay, originally it was Sarai's maid. All right, so Abram said, hey, you do what you want with her. She's your property. Okay, so she was basically Sarai's property before she was Abram's property, if that makes sense, showing you the hierarchy of things, and showing you that the concubine can be dealt with harshly, all right, to more of an extent than the Israelite woman. Now, don't get me wrong, the Israelite woman is still underneath her man, her Israelite man, Abram, right? Right. So Abram, her man, is over her, but Sarai is under Salakia. Hagar is under Sarai. Okay, showing you the difference between a wife and a concubine. All right. So it's basically a wife of lower status. Okay. Verse 7. And the angel of Yahweh found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. Okay, right? Because she was dealing harshly with her, so she fled. Okay, but it was in order because, she basically belonged to Sarai. So ultimately, she had to do what Sarai say and be in order and not buck up and act crazy. Okay, But that's basically it, just a short lesson on the difference between wives and concubines and just kind of going into that dynamic. And again, going into the scriptures about how it's lawful for a man to have multiple wives because the wife is ultimately the property or the possession of the man. Okay, but again, also showing that the Israelite woman being the property of the man is still over the heathen women that are also the property of the man. Okay, so with that, I pray this lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect, giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us this truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom wa abad babal. Shalom.